Ladies and gentlemen, hello. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm sorry, we're late. Mr. Garamendi had a scheduling misunderstanding, and he's on his way. He's about 20 to 30 minutes out. I apologize, and it is warm in here. We finally got the thing working, but if you want to roam around for about 20 minutes, you're welcome to. Otherwise, just keep on talking.
Maybe we can hear from Dan since we're all here.
Well, let's hope that we'll all be here in 30 minutes and do it fair and square.
Schedule misunderstanding, considering this has been out for a month. I mean, come on.
Well, I'm truly sorry. It wasn't.
Definitely not doing what he's supposed to be doing.
That's something you can get up and say later.
So then why can't we hear from Dan?
Good evening, everybody. I'm Carol from the Dixon Chamber of Commerce. I know it's an interruption to have to wait, but we're going to do this fair and square. And unfortunately, things happen. We want you all to wait. It's not going to be that long. It's only going to, so if you do want to make sure you save your place because chairs are limited. It's great to see this kind of a turnout, but things happen. And it's not fair. This is the format that we have, and if we stray off of that format, we're going to lose control.
Fair and square would have been on time.
You know what? That's beside the point at this. I'm sorry. We have to stick to this format, or we'll continue to spiral out of control, and we'll get out of, and it won't. Nothing will happen right. So, unfortunately, whatever the circumstances are, things happen. Things happen. So, just sit back. We hope you can stay, relax, and we're going to get this going very, very soon. So. No. We're not going to have any personal attacks here either, regardless of what side you're on. Can I get your attention for one second? We're not going to have any personal attacks also, and that is in the rules, and Barbara Beckworth is going to give that. We're going to stick to the issues tonight, and no personal attacks. It's all about the issues. So, anyways, just hang out. We're gonna get to it shortly. Things happen. There's nothing we can do, okay? So we're here for a debate, and you got to have two people for a debate. Okay.
Carol.
Good evening. If I could have your attention for one moment, please. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you. My name is Greg Lewis. I'm the fire marshal in the city of Dixon. And as such, I get the lovely duty of telling you that the building is overcrowded and it's a safety situation. Basically, the occupant load of the building is based on the number of seats in the building, meaning you can stand in here if there's a vacant seat for you. If there are no vacant seats, then you have to go outside.
I have many of my supporters here that are in the T-shirts. If they could be the first to exit. Thank you very much for being here, but maybe we can get some sound system outside.
Just go outside. Why don't we just go outside?
Thank you. I'm not sure what time your meeting is scheduled to start, but we won't be able to get it started until we clear the building. Thank you.
Okay, there's a couple of seats in the front. Are these okay? These are taken. Are there any? If there are any seats open, there's one seat open. We need to get this started. So if you can take your seats, you know what? You can absolutely. Anywhere you can find a seat, please take the seat. I think is that an open seat right there? Okay, there's an open seat here. There's 2 seats up front.
Actually, there's some room in this back room, and it has the sound systems on in the back room.
No, you can sit there. Okay, are there any other seats? Anybody have a seat next to you?
A couple extras up front, right?
Okay, there's 3 seats right over here. I think that's okay. I don't know if that's okay because he said there has to be. Okay, there's 3 seats right there. So, okay, because we're going to get this going. We apologize for the delay, but things happen, and you know what? This is a good thing. We got a good crowd here. We finally got a good crowd. You guys are going to get a chance to ask the questions tonight, so we're going to get it going real quick. Okay, anybody that does not have a seat does have to go outside. We'll have the door open so you can hear. Yes. Yes.
Statement you made is for seating only. So that this room right here has no standing room occupancy at all?
No. The occupancy, the occupant load of the building is based on square footage.
I know.
Unless you have big seats, and that's based on the seats.
I know.
How many people are in here right now?
I know when you do the fire rating, I had a building fire rating for people here, people in occupancy, and they do seating and standing.
So it's based on what size is based on the
The side 107.
Okay. There, it's pretty close to 107. Each row here is 10, so we're real close. So let's just get it started, okay? You guys, anybody that's standing can just stand outside. I'm sure halfway through there'll be people that probably want to leave and come grab the seats. There is one more seat up here. Okay. There's one chair up here.
Two chairs coming up.
There's 2 more.
Well, one chair there, one chair over there.
No, I'm not sitting. Okay. Okay. We're gonna have some more room here in a minute, so. That's their prerogative.
What are they doing? 3 more chairs over here.
Brandon Thompson, Miss Cole, brother.
Okay. Anybody that needs a seat, there's still a couple of more seats. I think a few are leaving. Okay. Okay.
Good evening. My name is Barbara Beckworth, and on behalf of the Governmental Affairs Committee of the Dixon Chamber of Commerce, it's my pleasure to welcome you to this evening's Candidates Night. Tonight's forum is the last in a series of 3 that the Chamber has sponsored. In early September, we heard from those running for the State Assembly, and 3 weeks ago, we held the forum for candidates vying for the 2 seats in the Dixon City Council. And this evening is dedicated to the candidates vying for the U.S. Representative California 3rd Congressional District seat. And we'll be hearing from John Garamendi and Dan Logue. We appreciate your being here, all of you. I wish we had speakers outside. And we also welcome those of you viewing at home. Audience, may I ask that you turn your cell phones off or put them on vibrate? The format hasn't changed much from what we have previously held, and it's as follows. The order of speaking has been determined by lottery. We'll start with opening remarks from each of the candidates. Following this presentation, you and the audience may submit written questions directed to a specific candidate or to both candidates. Pencils and index cards are available for your questions, and we ask that you write 1 question per card. Please write as legible as possible. During this interval, candidates will be asked to answer a few pertinent questions that have been submitted by the Governmental Affairs Committee. Following that segment, we'll have a short break. After the break, we'll proceed with the question and answer period, which will last for 60 minutes, evenly divided between written questions that you have submitted and by an oral portion in which you and the audience are invited to ask a question at the open mic. We'll ask you to use this mic over here. And we'll end with closing remarks by each of the candidates. So now that you've been informed, let's get the forum started. And the first candidate speaking tonight is Dan Logue.
Yeah, thank you. If you don't mind, I'd like us to stand and do a Pledge of Allegiance, please.
You betcha.
Please, to stand.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. I want to thank all of you for being here tonight. I want to particularly thank the Dixon Chamber of Commerce for putting this forum on. I'm in the State Assembly. I've been there for 6 years. I've been private sector. I'm Dan Logue. My wife's name is Peggy. I was born and raised in Woodland, not too far from here. We even played football in the 60s against each other. So I'm very attracted to Dixon. I've been in your parades. The people are fantastic. And this is really the heart of America, is this community. So I'm real pleased to be here today. I'm running because I believe our country is off course, that we need to put it back on course. We have a $17 trillion deficit. We owe $400 billion just in interest payments a year. Businesses are fleeing California in record number. They're going to China. They're leaving the country as fast as they can. We have a healthcare system that's been not only broken but dismantled as we speak. And I believe that the people of America deserve better. I'm very concerned about the direction of this country because primarily I see this country coming apart. I was raised during the Vietnam War, and I haven't seen it at odds like it is until now. I've never seen it like this before, where we have, our leadership in Washington, D.C. pitching the rich against poor and black against white and Hispanic against English and women against men. It's an absolute outrage what's happening in Washington, D.C. with the leadership. It's coming unglued. And I'm going to tell you something. This is the greatest country the world has ever known. Not the greatest country on earth, but the greatest country in history. And we're just one generation away from the greatest generation that gave their lives, saved Western civilization, and literally saved this country for my generation. Just one generation away. We have inherited a great debt, and we're standing on the shoulders of that generation right now. And I believe from their graves they're praying that we do the right thing, that we unite our country again, and we embrace the liberty and principles that we have long enjoyed for 200 years. My wife and I were in Israel a couple years ago. We got off the bus, and we had people applaud us. And I said, "Why are you applauding us?" He said, "Because you're from America. We love America." This little Jewish gentleman came up to me and he said to me, he says, "You know what? I may not be American, but I love freedom. And as long as I will live, I will always feel like I'm an American because I believe America set the standard for liberty." And he said, "There are people throughout the world that have never been to your country, but they call themselves Americans because of what you represent." Even the singer Bono said that that in Ireland is a great place to be, but America was a great idea. That's why we are different than the rest of the world. I don't want to be like Europe. I don't want a socialist country that dictates and tells us what kind of lights to screw into our lamps and what kind of cars to drive and what kind of foods we should eat. We need to give our trust back to the people and remind Washington, D.C. that we're here because we're here to serve you. Not long term. I'd like to see term limits, 10 years at the least, at the most, implemented. Because there's been a change in Washington and there's been a change in Sacramento, where we really believe, as far as elected officials, that they know best, and they don't know best. They have forgotten who they represent. Not only that, but the greatest thing that we could do to protect the freedom in our country is to shift power away from Washington, D.C., and to shift power back to local government. Look, I'm in Sacramento. I'm Chief Minority Whip in Sacramento. I've never been to Watts, but I vote on budgets for schools in Watts, but I've never been there. I'd rather have the people in their community decide to do with the resources. That's why I'm running this Unite Our Country again, because you know what? The best is yet to come. We are the shining light, and many people went before us to make sure that it's that way. Thank you, and God bless you.
Next is John Garamendi.
I was asked by our moderator to speak from the podium for the opening remarks. First, let me apologize for a serious error in my schedule. It said 7, but you were here at 6. So let's start with that. I have the great honor and privilege of representing one of the most interesting, challenging, and diverse districts in all of America. And I want to thank all of you, whether you voted for me the last time around or will vote for me this time or not, for the privilege and the honor of representing you in the United States Congress. It's an awesome responsibility. This district stretches 200 miles up the Sacramento River. It begins at Benicia and goes all the way just short of Chico. Includes half of the Delta, has 2 incredibly important Air Force bases, Travis, not so far from here, and Beale and Marysville. I serve on the Armed Services Committee, where I'm able to protect those bases and the men and women that serve there. This district is a $3 billion agricultural district. It's a district that has one of the most important research universities in the world, University of California, Davis. It's a district that has new and emerging technologies and businesses. It's a district that stretches from some of the highest mountains on the Sierras to the east, all the way to the highest mountain on the coastal range. It includes lake. It includes Clear Lake and half of Lake County. It's a district that requires intense understanding and knowledge of a plethora of interests and issues. And I have had the pleasure of working in this district, and I know from my experience really starting as one of 7 children, that if you're going to get something done, you better be able to work with people. And I do that by working across the aisle. My colleague, Republican Doug LaMaffa, from the northern part of the Sacramento Valley, he and I have introduced legislation to push through the federal processes, Sites Reservoir, an absolutely essential reservoir located just to the west of Maxwell in this district. Working across the aisle with my colleagues from New Jersey, we've been able to protect Travis Air Force Base and make sure that the KC-10 tanker remains there until such time as the new KC-46 comes in to replace it. Working across the aisle, we've been able to, at Travis Air Force Base with my colleagues, to make sure that 2 critically important assets that are now being used in Syria and Iraq remain available to the United States military, the U-2 and the Global Hawk. You cannot do this district unless you work across the aisle. And so when it comes to getting things done, I've learned long ago in my experience in the legislature and my experience as lieutenant governor and as the insurance commissioner, that you've got to work with people. People that you agree with and people that you may not agree with, but you've got to find that common ground. And we've been able to do that in this district. And I intend to continue to do that. We have many, many challenges. This is not a troubled country. This is the strongest, most advanced country in the world. And only America has the ability to reach out across the world to address problems. You don't see other countries going into West Africa to provide the military support and the infrastructure necessary to deal with Ebola. You don't see other countries leading in the Middle East. It's always America. So I want to thank you for the opportunity to speak to you tonight about why I should be reelected to this job, why we must continue to move this country forward, and I thank you so very, very much for being here. I thank my opponent for his entrance into this race. Thank you so very much.
Thank you. This concludes the first portion of the program, and now it's a time you can turn in your questions to any of the committee members. And during this period, we have a few pertinent questions that have been submitted by the Governmental Affairs Committee. And it's my pleasure to introduce your moderator for this evening, our Chamber of Commerce Vice President, Kevin Johnson.
Thank you, everybody. Candidates, the following questions are going to be for each of you. I will ask the question, and whoever would like to answer first, raise your hand, and we'll go back and forth from that point forward. You'll have 2 minutes. 2 minutes for the questions. Carol, go ahead and pick up your questions. There you go. Okay. Anybody that has any cards, please turn them into Carol now. So these initial questions are from the Governmental Affairs Committee. So first, as California struggles through a 3rd-year drought, elected officials from both parties are proposing to spend billions of dollars in public money on new dams and reservoirs. Shouldn't this have been addressed before we have these situations, and is there a way to speed up this process instead of waiting for more years for studies? Go ahead, John.
Thank you. Yeah, we're in a very serious drought. We've missed the opportunities in the past to address the droughts. We now have that opportunity, and we must take advantage of it. First of all, in the current situation, we've seen the federal and state governments working together to waive and work through the various laws and regulations that are out there to provide as much water as possible. We must not miss the problem of this drought in solving tomorrow's problem. And to that end, I proposed a water plan for all California almost 20 months ago that lays out the things that we must do: storage, conservation, recycling, desalinization, and make sure that we build new storage reservoirs. That's why Sites Reservoir is on that agenda. And finally, we must make absolutely sure that we do not waste $25 billion on an absolutely stupid proposal to build 2 tunnels through the most important delta and ecological place in the entire west coast of America. So we're going to stop the tunnels. That doesn't create 1 gallon of new water, but my water plan, if enacted, and part of it is now in the new Bond Act, will deliver 5 to 6 million acre-feet of new water for California. And we can build that beginning now, and we must do so. A conservation is already underway using some of the federal laws that are currently available and some of the federal money that was made available, as well as state money that's been made available. This is the challenge that we face. So I would call your attention to a water plan for all California and the Bond Act, which is now in place, a bipartisan measure that was pushed through the legislature. That Bond Act has many of the elements that are in my water plan, and I would draw your attention to that. So let's get on with it. Could we have done this sooner? Certainly we should have done it sooner, but that didn't happen. We are where we are today. Let's move it forward.
Excuse me, yes, I just want you to know, last year at this time, I sat down and wrote legislation to introduce a water bond that would create 2 reservoirs. It was before the drought, by the way. I'm proud to tell you that I am co-author of the legislation that was passed in Sacramento. And I want to introduce Ms. Yamada, by the way, and give her a big ovation because she co-authored that bill with me. Mariko? We came together, and I wanted water storage, and I believe that it's in Sacramento you have to, negotiate because, the parties are different. But the bottom line is we had enough resources to build 2 storage dams, Temperance Flat and Sites Reservoir, which is in my district. It's very important because we're going to look at about 3.8 million acre-feet of water storage. We also need to take a hard look at raising Shasta Lake. That's going to be very important. Ladies and gentlemen, this drought is man-made. This is a man-made disaster. We haven't had a dam built in the state for 40 years. It should have been done a long time ago. We're going to get this water bond passed. The latest polling has it up 2 to 1. I worked hard in my caucus to get my colleagues to get on board with this. There was a lot of confusion, and I told them, I says, if we don't act, we're going to end up with an $11 billion water bond that won't get passed. We're able to, as chief whip in my caucus, to get those votes and to get it out on the floor. And Mr. Yamada and I on the floor co-authored it, and by the way, we're real happy about it, and I think it's going to be great for the North State. Like I said before, this is a man-made disaster, and we have to get them built, and I believe now's the time to do it. And so we have so much at stake. Agriculture brings in billions and billions of resources to our community. There's going to be massive rationing here in the next few years if we don't have substantial rainfall. So this is a wake-up call, and I think it's a call for all of California, and I believe all of California is going to get behind this water bond. And I commend the Governor Brown who helped put this together and make it work, working across the aisle. We've done that on this bond, and it really paid off, and thank you.
Thank you. Second question, and Dan, you'll take this one first. California has lost more jobs than any other state since the beginning of the recession and is in one of the toughest states in which to grow a small business. What do you think are the reasons, and what would you do to change this?
Yeah, I wanted to make a statement. So 3 years ago, I sat down in the Capitol and I says, how can I get the people to understand how bad it is in California? I'm the jobs guy in California legislature. So I wanted to get the message out. So Gavin Newsom came into my office and he said, I hear you're the jobs guy. And I said, that's why I'm in Sacramento. We've lost hundreds and hundreds of jobs. Tesla's leaving for Nevada. I says, I'm going to do hearings in the state of Texas. He said, what? In the state of Texas, I'm taking 10 legislators, Kathleen Galgiani, Democrat, Republicans, and we're going to go there and we're going to meet with those businesses that left, and they're going to tell us to our face why they pulled up stakes and left the most beautiful state in the country and moved to Texas. And we did that. I had the Wall Street Journal show up, Governor Perry showed up, and he looked at Gavin Newsom and said, Gavin, you can't be for jobs and against business. It doesn't work. You have the most over-regulated state in the country. And that was a telling moment because we had numerous Silicon Valley companies sitting there in front of us saying, why did you drive us out of here? It's over-regulation. We have the highest tax rates in the country. We have more regulations in California than any other state in the country. And not only that, but we've handed over our rights to these regulatory agencies who are not elected, like AB 32 and CARB. They have police powers right now to be able to fine you. And these agencies are they overwhelming, but they fine you and they don't even need to give you due process. They fine you first and you've got to prove yourself innocent, and you have to go before them to prove yourself innocent. In the words of one gentleman who left for Nevada, his words were this: we left California because doing business in California was the death of 1,000 cuts. We've got to grow the economy. We've got to change the culture in California, but not only there, but in Washington, which is worse than California. That's why we've been ranked last for 8 years in a row to do business in California. It has to change in Washington and in Sacramento.
Without a doubt, the Great Recession, which is actually caused by a lack of regulation of Wall Street, hit California hardest, perhaps, of all the states. Maybe only Nevada was hit harder. And it was essentially the crash of the market, the crash of the economy that occurred because of Wall Street. How do we dig ourselves out of that? Well, the housing market is beginning to come back. Most of the jobs lost were in that particular area. We also know that we can create jobs, and we don't have to look too far away from where we are right now. About a mile south of here, Superior Foods is building a new processing facility for lambs, and they will increase the employment in this area. A few miles to the west, Genentech is doubling the capacity of its biopharmaceutical plant in Vacaville, and they're going to be hiring perhaps as many as 500 people over the next several years. You take a look at what's going on in the Davis area, mostly as a result of the research that's occurring at the University of California, Davis, where there are numerous startup companies and major companies now locating in that area. For example, Mori Seiki, a Japanese machine tool company, one of the most advanced in the world, decided to locate a manufacturing facility in Davis so that they could take advantage of the research. They are now doubling the capacity of that, and they're bringing the jobs along with it. There are strategies that are in place, and we are indeed returning California to what it once was, the great job place in this nation.
Thank you. And this one, John, you'll go first with this one. Illegal immigration is out of control, and not just with recent problems of minors. Our borders are not secure. Why can't government secure the borders, as some feel this is going to be the way terrorists will come into our country? Immigration custom enforcement states their hands are tied by this administration. What are your solutions?
Actually, illegal immigration has significantly reduced in the last couple of years for a variety of reasons. There's still a lot of illegal immigration going on. But the reality is that our immigration system in total doesn't work. It simply is broken. We need a comprehensive reform of the immigration system. We have, I think, increased tenfold, or nearly tenfold, the number of agents that are on the border. We have one of the most fortified borders in the world. Not to say that it's complete, it is not. But there is, in the comprehensive immigration bill that passed the Senate, significant money, billions of dollars, to enhance the border patrols and the border security. But that's not enough. You've got to deal with all of the other issues that are involved in immigration. And the comprehensive bill that I do support that came out of the Senate has never had a vote in the House. And if it did, it would probably pass, and many of the issues that are of great concern would be resolved. With regard to terrorism and I guess disease crossing the border, there is no evidence that that is happened, and it's not likely that it will happen. However, we do know that just today, there's been increased scrutiny on passengers arriving in the United States by airplane from the West African countries. That we need to do. Are they going to come across the southern border, the Mexican border? Are they going to come across on the ocean? Not likely. But we do need to be aware of these issues. So I would turn your attention to the comprehensive immigration reform legislation. There's more that can be done, and it is in that legislation, which I do support.
Does anybody in this room trust Harry Reid? Raise your hand. You guys?
Trust Harry Reid?
Yes. Does anybody trust Harry Reid? Okay, you know what I'm saying? Think about that. We have laws in the book that are not being enforced right now. The bottom line is that our borders are wide open. I've talked to members of Homeland Security, and they say that terrorists are absolutely coming across our border. It wouldn't take much for them to come here because it's an open sieve. The bottom line is we have to enforce the laws. And the number one step of priority would be to secure those borders. And I'll be really honest with you. I don't trust Mr. Obama. I don't trust Nancy Pelosi or Harry Reid to do that. I'm sorry. The bottom line is that we need to secure the border, and what's happened here and why you're here today is because you've lost trust not only in them, but you've lost trust in government in general. And I'm here to tell you, I talked to some people in Washington, D.C. today, and the congressman won't agree with this, but I'm going to tell you, they are absolutely knowledgeable about the fact that Mr. Obama, after the election, will change regulations and make illegals, up to 5 million people, illegal immigrants into this country. The bottom line is where you're going to put them on health care. So if he does an executive order and he's able to pull that off, you're going to understand why people don't trust the border being secured. We need immigration reform. We need to make sure that people come in here can work in California and go back and forth so they don't feel like if they go back home that they can't go back and get their work. And I'm all for that like they did in the 60s. That's something that should be done. But we can make this work, but we've got to get the trust of the people before we do that. And until that happens, I don't think the public's going to stand with us. Thank you.
Thank you, candidates. We're going to have a shorter than normal break, and it's 7:14, so at 7:20 we're going to resume. So if everybody could make sure they're back in their seats at 7:20, and we'll get restarted then.
Ladies and gentlemen, candidates, please take your seats and we'll proceed with the written question portion of the program.
Got these 6, and that's all I can do. So.
The gentleman over here says there's one seat available if you need to sit.
People are leaving. Hey, John, when is heat wave going to get over with? Pardon? This heat wave.
Yep.
90 degrees.
It's climate change.
Oh. No,
Okay,
global
thank you,
warming.
everybody. Good job. It's 7:20, and you did it. Thank you. Candidates, I will read each one of these questions directed to us. If it's directed to a specific candidate, I will let you know. Otherwise, it is open for both candidates. Remember to limit your comments to 2 minutes. There is a timer again in the back, and we'll go ahead and stick to that very closely because we are trying to keep to our time limits. I will tell everybody that we will have an open mic session after this. We have, you can imagine, quite a few questions, so during this period of time, we could not answer them all, so those you will have an opportunity if you hear that your question is not answered, not asked. So first question. State your position on either the protection of current status of Social Security or the effort to privatize. Support your position with facts, please. Which one would like to go first?
Yeah, absolutely. We need to protect and basically save Social Security. Right now, it's, I think the year 2018 or 2023, it's going to be broken. We've got to do whatever we can. I do not support the privatization of Social Security, but I do support that Washington sit down, reach across the aisle. This is an issue that is so important that we cannot allow this to become partisan whatsoever. We can fix it. We realize that there's more people that are aging. There's more benefits. Back when it was created by Roosevelt, there was, no, actually back in 1950, there was one person receiving benefits from Social Security, but there was 16 people working. Right now we have 3 people working and 1 person receiving Social Security. So we have got to make sure. Now, one of the ways to do that, now this is a novel idea, is, don't tell anybody, but maybe we can grow the economy and have more people paying into it, don't you think? That's one of the major problems that we have. Right now, we have a cost in welfare at $1 trillion. We have more people on welfare now than we've ever had before. And I'd like to get those people off welfare, paying in the Social Security for you. How's that sound? Does that make sense? And if we do that, so how do you do that? You roll back regulations on business, and you allow people to be entrepreneurs, and you grow the economy. The bottom line is Social Security can be fixed, but we have to reach across the aisle, build a consensus, and put Social Security before our own partisan benefits. That's what we need to do. Thank you.
Social Security is the absolute bedrock for any retirement. It is absolutely essential. There have been major efforts in Congress over the last 4 years to really privatize Social Security. Those efforts have been firmly rejected by my side of the aisle and would continue to do so. We understand that without Social Security, more than half of the seniors would be with nothing, literally nothing. Social Security is not going to go bankrupt in the next 4 to 5 years or even in the next 15 years. It's now into the late 2020s before there's any problem with Social Security. There could be in the days ahead, depending on how changes are made to Social Security. Please keep in mind that the Social Security system has been changed about every 15 to 20 years, and that will undoubtedly happen again. But we must maintain it. It is a foundational issue for anybody's retirement, and certainly for more than 50% of the seniors. Now let's keep in mind also that Social Security and Medicare go together. There's been an ongoing effort over the last 4 years by the majority party to take Medicare and literally make it for the future seniors unavailable. It simply is the privatization of Medicare. It should not happen. To be given a voucher and told to go out and buy insurance from the insurance industry is not going to work for seniors. And yet it is one of the consistent efforts by the majority party to do that. Now, with regard to jobs, 10 million jobs have been created in the last 4 years, private sector jobs. 50 consecutive months of private sector job growth have occurred. And we'll go into that in a little more detail on how we can actually increase the number of jobs in America using what I call the Make It in America agenda.
Thank you. This is for both. Are you on the exchange for Obamacare?
I am required by law to be like everybody else in the United States getting my insurance from the exchange. I have exactly the same insurance policy that anybody who has a Kaiser policy would have. No different than any other employee that is getting a Kaiser policy. And I'm on the Washington DC exchange, and fortunately, we're able to be on that exchange and still have California coverage with Kaiser. And it's exactly the same as everybody else. Keep in mind that since the Affordable Care Act, we've seen over 10 million Americans able to get private insurance. We've seen more than 3 million Americans also get coverage, 6 million Americans get coverage for either the Medicare or Medi-Cal or Medicaid. And children, 3 million children, now are on their parents' policy. And insurance discrimination, which was a horrible problem with anybody that had a pre-existing condition or happened to be female, was faced with insurance discrimination. Those days are over. And there are those who want to go back, repeal the Affordable Care Act, and go back to the bad old days of insurance discrimination. And 10 million people not getting insurance, and maybe 6 million people not being on Medicaid, or Medicare, Medicaid or Medi-Cal. In California, 3.4 million Californians now have insurance that didn't have it before. And 1.7 million are covered under Medi-Cal, and 435,000 children are able to remain on their parents' policy. That's quite a deal. In California, 5.6 million people that now have insurance that did not have it before, well, even less than a year ago, when the Affordable Care Act went into full effect and the exchanges were established. Covered California is indeed working in California.
Thank you. Yes, when I get elected to Congress, I will absolutely sign up for the exchange. But I want to tell you something. Obamacare is a disaster. This is a government takeover of a healthcare system, which is basically turning it in from a Cadillac to a Pinto, as we sit here today. It's a disaster. The CBO also came out and said it's going to cost us 2.5 million jobs. And I just got this article today from the Los Angeles Times talking about care for the exchange. The exchange has yet to post a comprehensive guide for physicians in California. The LA Times analysis said that they can't find insurers offering healthcare plans through the state insurance exchange are likely to reduce their provider networks in 2015. What we did is we took choice out of your hands and we put it in the hands of the insurance companies and the government. That's what we did. And it's interesting, they just did a poll on Obamacare with physicians, and 50% of them gave it an F rating. Think of that, physicians. Now, I don't think my colleague is a doctor, and I know I'm not a doctor, but I'll tell you something, somebody that should know about Obamacare better than anybody in this room is a physician and how it's affecting their lives. I got calls from people throughout the state. My colleague or Ms. Pelosi stated, if you like your doctor, you're going to keep it. Well, guess what? 8 million people lost their doctors. And they even branded that as the lie of the year in 2011 by Mr. Obama. We had the wool pulled over our eyes. What I want to do is save the patient-doctor relationship and take big government out of it. If you think they can run the Postal Service, you want to put your hand in their lives? Can you think about that, right? I mean, and do you want the enforcement by the IRS overlooking everything that you do when it comes to your health care? It's something that isn't going to work. It's costing us millions of jobs, and people are not hiring because of it. And my colleague has not talked about the subsidies that are going to go down in the next year when 36 states are not going to get subsidies for their patients, because that ruling is going to stick, and it's going to collapse the system. They never read it when they voted for it. Thank you.
This question is for both also, and Dan, you'll be first. Do you believe in amending legislation to allow individuals that are in the U.S. illegally to receive Obamacare, yes or no?
Boy, let me tell you something. We're going to have a waiting list now. Even what we have in front of us, you're talking about rationing to a level that we've never seen. Thousands of doctors are dropping out because of Obamacare. The reimbursements are collapsing with Congress not dropping them down to 27%. Medicaid doctors are getting out. Doctors are getting out because it's not working, because they've got to call Washington or they've got to call insurance company to make sure that they can take care of their patients. So my concern is if you add another 6 to 12 million people right now, the people in this room are going to be standing in line. If you think the waiting room in the emergency room is bad now, you wait till that happens. You know, I'm going to tell you something. I want to help people, but you can only help so many people, and I think that we have enough problems here at home taking care of the citizens that elected me to take care of this country. And those are my highest priorities. So I want to help people. There's $2 billion in Obamacare. Actually, that does allow for funding for immigrants who are here illegally, and they are getting that health care. But the bottom line is I'm not willing to put you in line with citizens who do not have citizenship in this country for political reasons to make me look like I'm a guy who wants to just make anything happen. I think it's the wrong move at the wrong time.
The federal law, the Affordable Care Act, does not allow and specifically prohibits undocumented illegal immigrants to receive benefits under the Affordable Care Act. That's the law. And I don't think that portion of the law should be changed. We do know, however, that there's an enormous scare tactic going on across this nation. This has become one of the great political footballs of all times. But the reality is quite different. You want to just go 5 miles down the road and go talk to the Kaiser facility in Vacaville and ask them how they're doing. Across this state, Kaiser has actually seen a significant increase in the number of patients, and the care for the patients remains, as it always has been, excellent and very, very good. Doctors are always leaving. It's called retirement. Okay, that happens. But we do know that we need more doctors. And I suppose that's one of the reasons that my daughter began Monday her first day of work as a family care physician with the Sutter program in Sacramento, Elk Grove area. She's joining that legion of doctors that are coming in, and many of the young want to be family practice physicians. But I will tell you this, in the Affordable Care Act, there was specific authorization to increase the number of residencies for primary care physicians. And guess what happened? The majority party cut the money out for that program. So yeah, there's going to be a shortage unless we fund those programs that create the new physicians of the future. We ought to also keep in mind this is not a government takeover of insurance. It is a continuation and expansion of what we have known for 60 years. It is the private insurance system operating through an exchange, a marketplace. That's it. It is not a government takeover of the insurance programs at all. It is an expansion of the private insurance programs in this nation. Now, I know this.
Excuse me. There will be time to talk afterwards. We're going to have a direct question.
Can I ask one question? Can you repeat the question again, please? Sir?
Who's asking this?
Me.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I just want to know what that question exactly
Yeah,
how you asked it,
absolutely.
please. Can you read it again, please?
Okay. Do you believe in amending legislation to allow individuals that are in the U.S. illegally to receive Obamacare, yes or no?
My answer was no. What's your answer, sir?
The same as yours, no.
Thank you.
And I
Okay.
said it very
Okay.
clearly.
Thank you.
Okay. This is also for both, and John, you'll be first. Why has this administration done nothing to get our Marine released? How do each of you feel about this?
I suspect that this question has to do with the Marine that was apprehended in Mexico. If that is the case, then it's not correct to say that this administration has done nothing. In fact, this administration has been actively involved in trying to address this issue. And I know that as a representative of this area and this state, that I have also engaged in an effort to try with the State Department, encouraging them to take action on this matter. It is yet to be resolved, and we would hope that this individual can return back to the United States. We'll see what happens. It's not yet settled.
Excuse me. I think that there's been absolutely nothing done to get this man back in this country. And I'll tell you, the bottom line is that we had the president of Mexico in the Capitol, and we sent letters in. There was demonstrations to get his attention, and we sent letters to the president to do everything in his power when he was in Mexico with the president of Mexico to bring this soldier home. Now, this soldier landed and fought for us overseas, and it's our duty to go back and get that man back here, and we can do that. We have enough leverage to do that. If we can put a man on the moon, we can get this man back in America, don't you think?
Good day.
Okay, so you'll be Dan, you'll be first, but this is also to both of you. Given that so many of our weapons have ended up in the hands of ISIS, despite our attempts to control them, do you support arming the Syrian rebels?
I just don't, because